From wetlands to wastelands, our Everglades have gotten so dry, they look more like a desert.
When the water levels dropped in South Florida, the truth came crawling out of the mud. Biologists expected a routine survey, but they found a structural collapse in progress.
Here along US 41, you can still see the dried, cracked ground here in the Everglades from the recent drought we've been having.
Beneath the soil, a network of burrows was destroying the root systems of every native plant in sight. 11,000 invasive creatures were found living in tunnels that reached 18 feet deep. Even more horrifying were the giant predators found using these holes as secret highways to move around. The drainage revealed a toxic legacy and a population of monsters that should not exist in the Everglades at all. Something has gone catastrophically wrong beneath the surface. The smell hit the survey team long before they reached the drainage zone. Dr. Maria Vasquez, a senior wetland ecologist, described it as rotting plants, mixed with something metallic like copper pipes sitting in stagnant water. The August sun had been baking the exposed mud at 97 degrees for 3 straight days. As the water dropped to just 4 inches deep, thousands of fish were forced into tiny pools. Their bodies were packed so tightly that the surface looked like it was boiling with desperate movement. Marcus Webb, a field technician who has worked in the Everglades for 11 years, said he had never seen anything like this. But here's the catch. Wedged into the muddy walls of every pool, the team found clusters of armored catfish. These are called plecos, and they are invasive bottom feeders covered in bony plates. They should not even be in these waters. Their scales scraped against each other as they moved in the muck, making a sound like ceramic tiles shuffling together. These creatures can breathe air for up to 30 hours. While native bass and bluegill were gasping for air in the heat, the plecos just waited with their armored bodies shining in the sun. On the second day, the situation changed completely. Dr. Vasquez was taking photos of a collapsed bank when her boot broke through into a giant empty space. The hole was 18 inches wide and went straight down. When the team ran a camera probe into the tunnel, they found 340 feet of interconnected burrows in that one spot. The soil structure had been hollowed out. Engineers reviewed the footage and realized the problem was not just fish. It was a structural collapse in progress. The burrows were not just for shelter. They were destroying the roots that hold the marsh together. Native plants could not grow because the soil beneath them was full of holes. Dr. Vasquez estimated that in the worst areas, 60% of the ground was compromised. The marsh was literally sinking, creating deep spots that changed how water flowed through the entire zone. And get this, when crews looked into the deepest tunnels, they found something that made the catfish look like a small problem. Something much larger had been using these holes as highways. The soil began to swallow the equipment as the deep tunnels gave way under the heavy machinery. What biologists found lurking beneath is beyond horrifying. To understand why this discovery scared everyone, people need to know what is buried under these wetlands. In the 1880s, a man named Hamilton Diston drained the Kissimmee River basin. He moved 50 billion gallons of water to turn wetlands into farms. Then in 1948, the government started a giant project with 800 miles of canals and 15 pumping stations. The engineering was seen as a win at the time, but it destroyed 1.5 million acres of the Everglades in just 20 years. Half of the original system was gone forever. Dr. Rebecca Thornton, a historian, has spent 15 years studying the results. She said that every time a treatment area is drained today, scientists are performing an autopsy on 100 years of mistakes. The mud holds phosphorus levels that would be illegal today. It holds chemicals that were banned in the 1970s. Now they are finding invasive populations that have been breeding in the dark for years. The 57,000 acres of stormwater treatment areas were supposed to be the fix. They were built to filter dirty water before it reached the protected areas. But the discovery made by the team suggests these areas have become incubators for the very species they want to get rid of. Hands down, this is the most complicated environmental puzzle in Florida history. The crazy part is that the deeper they dig, the more they realize that the past is still poisoning the present. The engineering from 80 years ago created a maze that invasive species are now using to hide from the sun and the scientists. The ancient chemicals in the mud were just the beginning of the secrets hidden in the muck. Autopsy on a century of mistakes. 3 weeks after the drain started, a crew working on a different restoration project made a discovery that caused a total lockdown. James Fontaine, an equipment operator, noticed his excavator bucket hit a hollow space 6 feet under the waterline. When he pulled the bucket back, something big moved inside the hole. Dr. Kristen Summers, a python expert, arrived within 4 hours. What her team pulled out of that single burrow over the next 2 days weighed 847 pounds. They found 19 Burmese pythons. The largest snake was over 17 feet long and took 3 people to hold. Its stomach had a partially digested deer inside. And get this, the drainage showed that these pythons are not just hunting in the grass, they are living underground. Dr. Summers described the tunnel network as an engineered habitat. There were multiple rooms with shed skins all over the floor. Bone fragments from previous meals were scattered everywhere. In her report, she said they are not dealing with a passing population. These animals have built permanent underground cities across the drainage basin. When she looked at heat maps of the area, she found signatures in other tunnels they could not even reach. She thinks there are another 30 or 40 pythons within a 500-yard radius of that one dig site. The removal mission was stopped after 48 hours because it was too dangerous. These pythons have already eliminated 90% of small mammals like rabbits and raccoons. Without those animals, the whole food chain is falling apart from the bottom. Predators that used to eat those mammals are now fighting over whatever is left. As the water went down, it created a predator pit. Dr. Frank Mazzotti counted 287 alligators in a hole the size of a tennis court. The water was 94 degrees and had almost no oxygen. The gators were snapping and rolling, making noises so loud it sounded like a construction site. The giant snakes were only a small part of a much larger and more toxic problem. An ecosystem being hollowed out from below. While the big animals made the news, the chemistry of the mud is what really scared the engineers. Carlos Menendez ordered soil tests across the drained land. The results were worse than anyone thought. Phosphorus levels in the top 6 inches were 1,540 parts per million. The goal for the Everglades is only 10 parts per million. That means the mud is 154 times more toxic than it should be. When you drain a wetland, you expose that mud to oxygen for the first time in a long time. The dirt breaks down and releases all those trapped poisons. When the water comes back, all that toxic stuff flows downstream. Dr. Thornton explained that the phosphorus hits the rivers like fertilizer in a bathtub. This causes giant green algae blooms within days. The toxins in the water can be 500% higher than what is safe. This ends the life of fish by the thousands. The 2021 Piney Point disaster showed how bad this can get. Hundreds of millions of gallons of dirty water were released into the ocean to stop a dam from breaking. That caused a red tide that ended the life of 1,500 tons of sea animals. Dolphins and sea turtles washed up on the beach for miles. The tourism industry lost over $100 million. Dr. Vasquez's team also found thousands of invasive snail eggs. These snails grow to the size of golf balls and eat native plants faster than they can grow back. They also carry a parasite that causes brain issues in humans. They found over 4,700 egg clusters. Each one has up to 600 eggs. That is millions of baby snails waiting to hatch. Basically, the drain was supposed to show progress, but it showed an ecosystem that is being poisoned from the inside out. The sleeping seeds under the mud are the last hope for a world that seems lost. The marsh remembered what it was supposed to be. Even with all the horror found in the mud, scientists stumbled onto something they never saw coming. Late in 2023, Dr. Thornton found that native plants were actually coming back on their own, without any help from humans. In the spots where the drainage was done carefully, the invasive plants dropped by 43% almost overnight. But here is the catch. Native sawgrass began to sprout from seeds that had been sleeping in the dirt for decades. Some of those seeds had been buried since before the 1948 project even started. We are talking about seeds that were over 70 years old and still alive after being trapped under toxic muck. Basically, the marsh remembered exactly what it was supposed to be. It is like the ecosystem has a secret hard drive buried in the dirt that just needed a reboot. This has led to some pretty wild theories among the people watching the site. Some researchers are starting to wonder if the Everglades is actually a collective intelligence. Think about it. How can a seed stay alive for 70 years while being soaked in banned pesticides and heavy metals? What most people do not realize is that these plants might have a biological backup system that we do not understand yet. Some locals even whisper that the marsh is waiting for the right moment to take back the land. It sounds like science fiction, but when you see native shrimp and crayfish returning to zones that were dead for a century, you start to wonder. These tiny animals are the base of the whole food web, and when they thrive, the birds come back, and the alligator populations get healthy again. The crazy part is that the data from these drains is now being used to find where the pythons are hiding in their secret underground cities. Scientists have mapped 847 den sites based on the weird holes they found. It is not just about counting snakes anymore. It is a full-scale tactical plan to save the foundation of Florida. This work costs $2.4 billion and needs 16 different agencies to play nice together. And that is putting it lightly, because it is a war with very few resources and almost no time left on the clock. Some people are even theorizing that the invasive pythons and catfish are not just there by accident. There is a wild idea going around that these creatures are actually terraforming the Everglades. They are hollowing out the ground and changing the water flow on purpose to create a new kind of swamp that native animals cannot survive in. It is like a biological invasion designed to replace our ecosystem with something else entirely. It is not that simple, though, because the marsh is fighting back with everything it has. The Everglades has survived 100 years of being used and abused by humans, and it has proven over and over that it wants to survive. It just needs us to stop standing in its way. So, here is the deal. Every single day that we ignore these signs, another section of the marsh collapses into those deep catfish burrows. Another python nest hatches in a tunnel that we have not mapped yet. Another algae bloom poisons the water that millions of people depend on for their daily lives. The solutions are sitting right in front of us, but we need the will to act before the ground literally disappears under our feet. What do you think is really hiding under the Florida mud? Leave a comment with your theories on these hidden tunnels. Like and subscribe for more mysteries from the deep.